Well, hey there, I'm Joshua Johnson. It's good to be with you on this Thursday, February 10th from the newsroom of Noticiero Telemundo in Miami. And tonight we're talking about presidents past and present. Former President Trump is denying mishandling White House documents, including flushing some of them down the toilet. Now the Justice Department is looking into what happened. Then,
whomever I think will get a vote from the Republican side for the following reason. I'm not looking to make an ideological choice here. I'm looking for someone to replace Judge Breyer with the same kind of capacity Judge Breyer had.
President Biden sits down for an exclusive interview with NBC's Lester Holt. Lester joins us with a preview. The protests in Canada seem to have no end in sight, with at least 2 border crossings affected. We'll get insights on the standoff from a former U.S. ambassador to Canada. So when a president leaves office, what happens to the papers he leaves behind? In the late 70s, Congress passed a law to preserve those records. The Presidential Records Act basically establishes that the public owns any administration's records. That means presidents must turn over any official documents to the National Archives when they leave office. If a president wanted to destroy any records for whatever reason, the act requires them to get written confirmation from the United States Archivist. Well, it seems that former President Trump may not have followed this protocol, and that is the focus of a new investigation by the House Oversight Committee. 15 boxes of documents from the Trump White House ended up at Mar-a-Lago. The committee wants to know how that happened. It has been in touch with the National Archives, which recovered the documents just last month. In a letter to the Archivist of the United States, Committee Chairwoman Carolyn Maloney says she is, quote, also concerned by recent reports that while in office, President Trump repeatedly attempted to destroy presidential records, which could constitute additional serious violations of the PRA, unquote. The National Archives is also asking the Justice Department to investigate. Meanwhile, President Trump has issued a statement, quote, it was a great honor working with the NARA, that's the National Archives and Records Administration, working with NARA to help formally preserve the Trump legacy. He also added, quote, the papers were given easily and without conflict and on a very friendly basis, which is different from the accounts being drawn up by the fake news media. In fact, it was viewed as routine and no big deal, unquote. A statement from the archives says that the president's representatives are, quote, continuing to search for additional presidential records that belong to the National Archives, unquote. So, what happens next? What kinds of repercussions can a president face for something like this, if any? Let's begin with NBC national security correspondent Ken Dilanian. Hey, Ken.
Joshua, 2 administration officials have confirmed to NBC News that the National Archives asked the Justice Department to examine whether federal law was violated in the handling of presidential records at the end of the Trump administration. That came after officials said Trump returned 15 boxes of records to the archives after they were found on his Mar-a-Lago estate. And now we also have reports that Trump routinely ripped up presidential documents, which then had to be pasted back together by his staff. And there's also a claim in a new book by New York Times White House reporter Maggie Haberman that Trump flushed documents down White House toilets. The law in question here is the Presidential Records Act, which was adopted in response to the claim by Richard Nixon that his White House records belonged to him. But that law has sort of been enforced on the honor system over the years, and there's no indication as of now that prosecutors are investigating Trump criminally. Legal experts say that would be a difficult case to make, and officials pointed out that presidents don't usually pack their own boxes. So unless investigators find evidence of an effort to cover up wrongdoing, nobody's expecting criminal charges. All that said, Joshua, the House Oversight Committee is also investigating this matter, and they have a different mission from prosecutors. They want to get the facts in front of the public. In response to all this, Trump issued a fairly vague denial that doesn't address the specific allegations. He said in a statement, the media's characterization of my relationship with NARA, that's the National Archives and Records Administration, is fake news. It was exactly the opposite. It was a great honor to work with NARA to help formally preserve the Trump legacy. He goes on, the papers were given easily and without conflict and on a very friendly basis. You'll note, Joshua, that Trump didn't say whether he destroyed or withheld documents. Joshua?
Thank you, Ken. That's NBC's Ken Dilanian starting us off tonight. Let's continue now with NBC News.